Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar on AutoCAD tips and tricks, and my name is Alyssa Jairus. I'm a BIM specialist in the AAC Bull section at Baker Baines. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Who is Baker Baines for those who don't know, and the first people that are joining us for the first time? We are one of Autodesk's Gold partners, and we specialize in a few of these environments, if I might say. And we also have a few other added-on services like CAD learning, civil site design, and Adubar. And we also have Autodesk Authorized Training Center, in which we do training for the different softwares for Autodesk. At Baker Baines, we believe in designing a better world, in delivering a better project or product, and in technological adoption to produce results. Okay, so let's get into our agenda. Right, so a couple of things that we're going to do, a bit of a know how to do certain things in AutoCAD. First few sections that we're going to focus on is the user interface, often taken for granted and often kind of overlooked. There's a few things that we can do to customize our user interface to make it a little bit easier for us to do things, and useful commands that we could use. There's also things like our system issues, which would focus more on our system variables and what does that mean. You know, often that goes overlooked, and there's a lot of system variables that are put in place into AutoCAD that we don't know of, and we might be using AutoCAD in a manner that's not as efficient as it could be. So we're going to look at what are some of those, and just putting in notifications for special or specific system variables to notify you when they have been changed, if it by mistake, because it does happen. And then we'll be looking at some external reference issues. So those of you who do use external references, we're going to look into creating default reference parts or reference type parts, and looking more into the XREF manager. Okay, so there's a few tricks in there. Then we're going to go on to focusing on selection, you know, what small things like selection that can make you work a little bit faster, the select similar, select settings, and selection cycle issues that we could go through to help you find out a better way of doing things. And then we're going to go through some time savers. So that's like going through reversing your arc, bringing back the last erased object, resetting markers, viewport cycle, converting lines to polyline, and print notifications. Okay, little tricks here and there that could help you a little bit better. And then the last issue that we would go through is a better way of drawing, cleaning up your drawing. So a couple of other methods to just make your drawing a little bit smaller, depending if you were going to send this to another person, or how could we make that drawing a little lighter and a little less complex. Okay, so let us start. I'm just going to switch my screens quickly. All right, so I just have a project open that we could just use to navigate through, and we'll talk about a bit here and there. And I am using Autodesk AutoCAD 2018. These tips and tricks that I am using also can be used in 2019 onwards as well. And you can try it out in the previous versions. I can't recall the date that some of these were changed. I'd really have to go back into the archives. But for those of you who are self-taught AutoCAD users, this would be more useful for you if you know haven't been through proper training, or sometimes in training, even formal training, these certain tricks aren't really talked about because it's not your usual fundamentals, essentials to draw with. So let's just go through some of the topics. So the first one there is the user interface that I'm going to go through. It's customizing. The first one I want to talk about is customizing your quick access toolbar. So not a lot of people know that you can customize this. So it's found in the top left here, as you can see. And if I drop down the little arrow button to see on the right there, you can see a whole list of tools that you could possibly add on to your quick access toolbar, or even remove. So where the tick is it means it's showing on your toolbar. Where there's no tick, that means it hasn't been really added in there. And I could go and probably go and click one of these, and it's just going to populate that on the top there. Okay, I've seen other people with crazies on the top there, so it's not really restricted to what you see in the small list. So I'm just going to untick that, and if I just look below here, you can access more commands. So it's not only the commands that you see in here. There's more commands that you might click onto here and choose and select something else. There is a long list of commands. So if you know there's something that you use often, instead of trying to type it in or find it in the ribbon here in the background, you possibly want to add one of these, click one of these and add it onto your quick access toolbar. So it's a little something to make it a little bit easier for you guys to do stuff more quicker. So other than that, as I was talking about finding tools on the ribbon, often, people who don't use the command line, and you often get people who use a lot of the command line and people who love looking for the tool in the ribbon. So I'm one of the latter people, the latter group of people. So I prefer looking at my ribbon and actually clicking my tools, unless it's something easy for me to type in, then I'll type it in. But in any case you can't find any of these tools, you're struggling to find it, especially in the 2019 version. If you've noticed, I'm using 2018. 2019 interfaces has been changed. It is different. It's more difficult to find things. If you are struggling to find a certain tool, essentially you could go to your help. As simple as it seems. To go to your help. I'm just waiting for it to load, and what I can do is I'll type in a specific tool, so maybe the trim and extend tool. So I'm just gonna type it in there in the search bar on the right, and what it's gonna do is I can click on the trim command, and there's a little option just below the description of the command and the item. It says find, and then you can click this and it's gonna pop open where the tool is actually. So this is a quick way if you're struggling to find a tool, just come in here, click on the find button. There should be this find button for any tool that you're looking for that's in the ribbon. Come in here and just click on that, and then you could find your tool a little bit quicker. All right. Other few, so jumping around all over the place, I'm going back down here to the status bar at the bottom. So if you just notice, well, some people, when you buy AutoCAD or when you download and using the software, you kind of just get used to the status bar. What you see at the bottom is what it is. The icons are there, and you just kind of leave it there. You can customize this just in the same way that we have customized the quick access toolbar. So if you notice a little hamburger looking icon on the far right, if I might click that, I could essentially, again, we have the ticks and the ones that aren't ticked. So I could essentially go and click, an item that I want to either add onto my quick access, my status bar, or I can choose to take out unnecessary ones and just keep in, because sometimes there may be a bit too many things in here, and there's stuff that you don't probably even know what is it used for. You don't even use it, so you want to maybe untick things that you think that you're not going to actually use. And one thing that I might just pick up is if you have a preferred workspace and you guys are working with specific workspace, I also know that there's a shortcut to cycle through the workspaces that you might want or need. Okay, so workspace is something that you guys should check out. We're not talking about it in this webinar, but it is something very useful. All right, so another something is the recently used files. So your number of recently used files. If I might click onto my application where it says A, usually there's a recent documents folder or icon that you might see there, and it gives about, let's count, about nine recently opened documents. You know, and you may be opening things a lot and often. So what if you want to increase this list to maybe something greater, or even decrease it if you really need to? So to do this, we're going to go to our options in here. So you can either type in options in your command line, or you're going to click on options that you see down here on the file menu, file application. And if I might just go to open and save, right, where it says application menu, right at the bottom here. So file open application menu, we can put in the number of recently used files that we want to display in that application menu. Okay, so that's the open on the start bar, start menu, sorry, and this one's in the application menu that you saw when I clicked that down. Okay, so I can increase this to maybe, well, I don't really know what it's going to show, so I'm just clicking it to 15. Let's hope that it increases mine right now. Oh, there we go. That's interesting. So, side note, you can also pin these on the side. If there's something that you know you open quite a bit and quite often, you want to maybe pin this to your recent documents so that it's always on recent documents, irrespective of what you open. Okay, I hope you guys are with me. So, still on the user interface, a little something that people don't really take note to, but if I might quickly just click on something here, I'm just going to click on this line. Okay, and if I might move it, do you notice the little dash line? So little doesn't really make you work any efficiently or not, really doesn't matter or change anything. But often people don't know that we can change that color of that line. It is something a little bit more recent. We can change the color of the dashed line, and you will find that again under your options, under your, I'm just going to look for it, display. Yes, for a moment I lost it there. Hey, so display, you're looking for colors. Okay, how you usually change the colors of the background and so on. So it's the same window that we're coming back to, but instead we're going to look for rubber band, the rubber band line. So I could essentially change that rubber band line to something else. Okay, let's go a bit crazy. Let's change it to purple. That might be funky. Purple, click apply, close, apply, and OK. Okay, now if I check it out, see you've got a little purple line going on there. So this is just like a fun thing just to make your AutoCAD more, you know, customized to your liking, I guess. A few other things that I might add is I know that people normally have problems with selection, especially when you zoomed in close to a drawing and you select a whole bunch of lines, and on zooming the selection set gets deselected. And this is because of a small command which is called selection, I might type it in, off screen. Okay, selection off screen. Click OK. You want to set this to 1 so the selection set stays. Okay, if it's in 0, then we're going to have a problem of actually, when you're zooming in and out, you are going to lose that selection set. So you can keep that to 1. That is one example of a system variable as well. We will be going through other system variables in the next section. Something else that's very handy would be your close other command. So in case you had a bunch of drawings open, okay, I'm just going to quickly draw to open in a few things. And for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to quickly draw lines in there. Okay, and I'll tell you in a bit why I'm doing that. You had a whole bunch of drawings open and you want to close all except the window that you have currently open. So it's a quick close. What you can use is your close all other command. Okay, on hitting enter, it's going to close those drawings, but obviously it's going to pick up if you've drawn something in there or not. So if you have made changes, it's going to prompt you to save. So don't worry about you losing your work or anything like that. If you have, however, if you haven't drawn anything in that new file, it was going to close it without saving. So that's why I just added in a little line of something in there. So I can say no, and it's going to prompt me for each drawing. Okay, that's the next one, except the current one I have open. Okay, so it's a quick way to quickly close a lot of your drawings at once. Okay, all right, I hope you guys are still with me. So let us go onto system variables. So system variable, basically, if you don't know what it is if you have a certain, you can set a value, I think up to like 4. So each value or number for a command has a value that kind of defines certain settings. Example 0, when we put in select off screen, a value of 0 meant that the selection deselected on zoom, or if it was 1, it kept the selection. Okay, 2 is so and so, etc. So that is a system variable. It's settings that change how your system operates, and there is a long list of system variables. It's impossible for anyone to actually know every single one. So we are going to go through a few cool ones and also maybe even show you guys where to access some of the others that you might want to just keep an eye on, because they could be a major drastic change in your drawing. So let's just go through it. Okay, so if you want to kind of save a specific system variable setting, I want you to go to system, sorry, let's take out the T, sys monitor. Okay, what this will do is going to monitor certain system variables that you think are very important. If it changes, it's going to make a big difference to your drawing, and you wouldn't want to change some of these here. So you want to be notified in case it was mistakenly changed. Okay, essentially, okay, this is a crazy one right there. So essentially, this is a little box that's going to tell you that, hey, if any of these change, I want you to notify me. You can see that on the top. It says notify when these system variables change. Okay, you can also enable a balloon notification that pops up. Yeah, you would see those often. Okay, essentially, I can also go and edit the list, and you will see a multitude of system variables on the left that I might select and bring over to the side to keep an eye on these ones. Okay, so if you know a couple, you can come here, search in a couple, pop them onto that end, and if these change, you will be notified about them. So if I click OK, right, so let's just try changing one of those. I'm going to change this one, the dreaded file dir, and I'll talk about this in a bit. File dir, let's change that to 0. It's telling me that, hey, one of these has changed. Click here to change it back. Okay, you can see that that's giving me a notification saying this is not the preferred value, like you should change it. Okay, preferred is this. Right now it's that. I can click here reset, and it's going to change all to my preferred value in here. Okay, so it's a little tip that might help you guys just keep an eye on things. Doesn't get too crazy. Okay, so I want to talk about maybe two other or 3 other system variables that you might find quite interesting. One of them is file dir. I know a lot of people have this issue with their application and can't seem to figure out what's going on. So often when I might click and open a new drawing, my dialog box pops up and I can choose my drawing. But some people have an issue of clicking on open and it doesn't open up the dialog box. Okay, and that's where file dia. If I type that in there, file dia, if I press enter, right now the value is 1. 1 means that the dialog box for opening a new drawing or inserting drawings is going to pop up. But the moment I change this to 0, okay, let's try and see if I open up what happens. So open drawing, okay, this often happens. It gives you the description or the insert kind of path on your cursor, on your dynamic input space there that you see, and then you have to enter where this drawing is. Very difficult way to work, very confusing. So you want to maybe make sure you type in file dia and set this to 1. Okay, cool. So there's another 2 items that we could change. So another 2 system variables that I know of is tray notification. So often you'll see like those little pop-up bubbles that happen after printing that talk about the system tray and information of all of that you don't really want to have pop up all the time. So if you want to switch this off, what I'm typing in there says tray notify, okay, I'm pressing enter, and if you set this value to 0, it's going to turn it off, okay, so that it doesn't pop up with those messages. And if you're confused about any of the system variables and what the values mean, you can always search it online and just have a check on what those values actually mean. Okay. Another one would be quite interesting one. So I'm just going to quickly draw in a couple of lines in here on the side. Okay. We know that if we have single lines like this, we can kind of join it to become a polyline. So there is a small shortcut in doing this. Often you have to do the long way around it, where it's p-edit, kind of allows you to select a couple of lines, but this box pops up and you have to click on join and so on. But in case you just wanted to quickly join your lines without the little option box that pops up here, what we could do is if I type in p-edit accept, okay, p-edit accept that you see down here. If I set that value to 0, because right now it's 1, which means the box pops up. If I set it to 0, let's try that again. Okay, so p-edit, let's see if we join in tools, what happens. I'm selecting polyline, but let's just select multiple. And there is no box that pops up. Okay, it automatically assumes that you are joining this line. Okay, so that's a quicker way to do that rather than a long way around. Okay, let's talk about external references. I might just hop by here. Let's talk about external references. So you would notice, so those of you who don't know what external references are, so if you want to kind of insert another external drawing, so say you have an architectural department and an interior department. The interior department is working on the interior part of the model, and the exterior is being done by the architectural side. These 2 departments can work on 2 different files, but link them up together, and that's how you get an XREF. So that is called an external reference. Okay, and you can insert that external reference by attaching it here. Okay, so if I click, sorry, let's just keep this on here. Okay, if I click on that external reference, which is that bit there that you see, okay, I can see the file path, the saved path, and all of those information, and attachment type, and things like that. Essentially, when we insert, when I insert references, okay, I'm just going to do a quick one. Open. By default, the path is set to relative, okay, by default. Or is it really default? So that's also controlled by a system variable again. So you'll hear that quite a bit, even though we're under the section of xrefs. But if you want to change the path type, the default path type that the external reference comes in through, what we're going to do is type in ref path type. Okay, press enter. Right now the value is 1. So that means that the reference, the default reference path type is relative. 2 would mean a full path, and 0 would mean no path at all. So if I change this to 2, let's go see. If I go attach a drawing, you can see that the path type is changed to full by default. It will always be sitting on there. Although I can go change it, but sometimes it's like you forget to change it or something like that. So it's nice to maybe change your default path type. 0 is going to be no path. Relative path is going to be 1, and full path is going to be 2. Okay, so a little something to help you guys work a little bit faster. And what happens if you have links that have been kind of a little warning sign, you can't find the link, and so on. So essentially you might have a list of references here. So we have a little option to right click, find and replace. Okay, what happens is it tells you the saved path, and if you want to replace that saved path with something, you can do a replace all, so you can do a whole bunch at once. Okay, so you'll just type in or find your path in here and populate that in here. Okay, sorry, my box is popping up on my other screen. Okay, so and you reference that back. Okay, and it does a bulk replace. All right, so I'm going to quickly close my xrefs. Okay, I'm going to talk about selection. So we'll talk a little bit about selection and how to do selection a little bit quicker than usual. So if you guys don't know already, I'm just going to check what layer this is. Okay, it's the furniture layer. Okay, so if I right click the furniture layer and I say select similar, it's going to select, if this is a block, it's going to select all the blocks. All right, so right click, select similar of that kind. Or you can go into the settings and change what select similar actually picks up. Okay, if I just click on this wall on the side here, select similar is going to select all of those that are on that layer. Okay. All right, so if I want to change these settings of what select similar actually picks up, I can, if I just find this, I'm just going to find it first, select similar, right? We're typing it in instead of right clicking, typing it in. On typing it in and pressing enter, you're going to see a settings option at the bottom there. Okay, so make sure your command line is up and running. Click on the settings and you can see that select similar settings are picking up things like the layer and the name. So let's take this off and let's try it with color. Okay, right, let's see. Let's right click this, select similar. All right, it's picked up the same color item. Quite interesting. So I'm going to do that again. So select similar and go to settings and change it in here. And I'm going to put it back. Just so I'm used to the default. So that if you want to change this to actually pick up selection sets a lot quicker, so then you can just toggle around this information. Okay, and what happens when, let me just find a perfect scenario for us. So I'm just going to quickly draw a few lines over here. Okay, you might have an instance like this. I'm not sure, I hope you guys can see on the screen, that you're trying to select an item, but there's too many things kind of over it. You want to maybe cycle through the information so that you could possibly select one or two of the lines or the item that you need. So you need to put on your selection cycling on, so that's Control W, okay, to put on selection cycling, and then you can actually tab over your items to tab between two different things that are overlapping each other. So Control W, okay, either clicking it, you must check your command line to see whether it's off or on. Okay, so it's tabbing over to pick items that might be overlapping each other. Okay, let's go through some time savers. Okay, so let's go through the reversing an arc. So I'm going to quickly start my polyline tool. Okay, we're drawing our polyline on the side here, and then you want to do an arc. But the arc is not, it's only in one direction. So if you want to reverse this arc, you're going to hold on your control, and it's going to help you reverse the arc so that you might draw a reversed arc. So that's holding on control, okay, and then click to place. Right? Little time saver. The next one I quite like, and I'm going to show you guys something in here. So just for example, I might have deleted a few of these items. I deleted those discs on the side there, right? And what we can do is carry on drawing. You know, this happens to a lot of us where we just carry on drawing as per usual, and then when we're too far down the line, as in further than the usual undo list that you see here. Okay, so if we're far that we don't actually see, okay, one of our lists here, specifically the erase last object, what I want you to type in is to retrieve that last erased object, irrespective of how far down the line you are. You want to type in oops, press enter, and it's going to bring back that last deleted item, okay, instead of undoing a whole bunch of information. Okay, so that's a little bit of helpful hint. So that's typing in oops to just get the last erased object back. Okay, there's something else that's quite fun, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will enjoy this. Still on the undo type information or type commands. So there's something we call undo mark, and what that basically does is if you want to set a marker basically to revert back to after drawing a whole bunch of things, you can set an undo mark. So to do that, what we're going to do is type in undo. If you press enter, we'll see a whole bunch of settings or options down here, and you want to click on undo mark. So just say that you have this a project that you're doing and you want to do a whole bunch of changes to see what it looks like. You can set an undo mark to revert back to directly after you think that you don't like those changes, and you can just switch back to the original. So undo mark. Okay, so that's the undo mark. And then I might be here changing a whole bunch of information. Let's do some crazy changes. So I'm copying that over. You know, maybe I'm thinking of doing something there. Extending all this stuff. I'm doing some crazy things. Then I realized actually I don't like this, you know, this design anymore. I don't know. It's not looking really cool. I can just, so let me just make a few more changes just to make it a little bit better. Okay, just doing quick things here. So I'm changing a whole bunch of things, and then I decide I want to revert back to what I originally had. I'm going to type in undo, okay, and then instead of mark, the item next to mark is back. So if I click in back, it reverts back to where I originally placed the undo mark on there. So that's undo, and then you choose mark to set a mark placement, do all your changes. If you're not happy, revert back by typing in undo and selecting back. All right. Okay, enough with the model space. Let's jump onto one of our sheets. So I'm gonna jump onto this sheet. Okay, very simple sheet, not much happening. Often there's a crazy bit of viewports that's going on in here, viewports within viewports, and sometimes maybe a little bit difficult to select or enter viewports because they're overlapping each other. So if you want to cycle through some of the viewports, what I'm going to do is I'm entering the viewport, I'm clicking on, I'm holding on Control and using the letter R on my keyboard whilst holding Control, hitting my R button and cycling through the different viewports on my sheet. Okay, might be a quick way to just jump in and out of viewports instead of exiting, going back into there, and so on and so forth. Quick way, quick, nice time saver that you might want to remember and use. All right. Okay, so we're on to our last section, which is just methods of cleaning up our drawing. Sometimes you may have a drawing that's a little bit messed up, you know, you got it from some consultant or somebody and they haven't really drawn it properly. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's all over the place. How can we make this a little bit better other than doing the usual audit? So if you guys don't know, you can do a little audit to fix any errors on pressing enter and pressing Y. You can run through the drawing in that way. Or if you even do a purge, that's the usual things that we know of. Purge allows you to purge unnecessary things that we know that we're not using in our project, clear out some space. But what in case that's not in now? So there could be ways of doing other things. So I'm just trying to find the perfect example. Okay, I want you to just take note that these are all separated lines in here. Okay, what in case you wanted to convert a whole bunch of lines into polylines, it would make the drawing a little bit lighter because the lines would be separate elements. They might be joined in together or combined into one object. So what I'm going to do is use my join command. So clicking my whole item or my whole drawing, clicking on join, hitting enter, and it's told me here that, hey, there are that many objects turned into 46 polylines. And one of the ones that I do pick up is the little furniture that was in separated lines have now formed into polylines. So this might be a little bit better for your drawing, refreshing, reloading. But obviously take into account whether you really need this to be in polylines or do you need them to be separated lines. If this drawing is kind of done and dusted and you know it's going to be in the archives and you know you just want to make it like bare minimal size, maybe use this tool and just to make things a little bit less complicated. Otherwise, other items that I could tell you about is overkill. So you might have lines on top of it, lines like that. You know, sometimes I know people, AutoCAD users especially, complain about the exported DWGs that come from Revit, that lines are on top of lines. in this instance like that, and that's only because we're converting a 3D model into kind of a 2D space or 2D view. So lines on top of lines is a very common thing. So maybe something that you could use is overkill. Press enter, or let's rather select my objects first and then type in overkill. So overkill. Okay, it will help me kind of remove those duplicate objects or duplicate lines. And if there's something specific that I want to ignore, then I can click it in here. Okay, or there's an allowance of tolerance that I want to maybe put in here, then I can, which can go through these and delete duplicate objects. Click OK, and it's going to delete my duplicate objects. You won't see my line there anymore. Okay, so obviously that was a small example on the side. Think of it in a bigger scale. If you have a bigger drawing, that's a bit more complex and complicated. And the last, so I have one more drawing cleanup method, and I think it's one of my favorites as well, is because especially since you're trying to get drawings out to the contractor and so on and so forth, and often drawings come back with text or dim dimensions being overridden. So example, let's just show you what that means. So people might be faking a few of the dimensions and hoping that people aren't measuring on site to see. Well, most of the time they don't. But so they might be faking these dimensions. If I click the dimension, right now it tells me where it says text in my properties. It tells me that my measurement is actually 10:045, but I've overridden the text to read as this. When in case you get a drawing like this, it is painful to have to change everything. So there's a quick tool that you can use to change a whole bunch of them. I just have one placed in here, but you can use it for a batch rather of dimensions. To override or fix this, I'm going to type in dim reassociate. So don't confuse this with dim reassociate. These two are different. Okay, it's different. This one's going to reassociate the actual value of the dimension and remove the overridden text. So it's gonna bring it back to normal. So I'm pressing enter. Okay, on enter, selecting my object, clicking enter again, or pressing enter again, and it's changed it. Okay, so I could have had a whole drawing full of these dims or dimensions, and I could have reset them back to their original value. Okay, very helpful, especially if you've worked with AutoCAD for a while and you know the kind of problems that you might face, especially if you're interfacing with other people who don't necessarily draw the best, using the best methods, or don't have the best habits. So it's something that you could maybe use to just help you get that drawing back and ready. Yeah, so let me just quickly jump to my screen. Okay, let's just get that going. Okay, so our summary. Okay, so a few things we went through is the user interface, which we talked about the quick access toolbar. We customized that. We did a finding tools through help, so we searched for the help for the tool and clicked on the found button or find button to find our tool on the ribbon very quickly. We've even went to options in our file application menu, and we've toggled off and on the preset number for the recently viewed files. And then we went to the status bar to customize that. We even talked about the select off-screen values that might help you keep your selection set on panning and zooming in and out. We also talked about close all other, which closes all other drawings except the one that you're currently in. So that's the command there. And then we spoke about the system variables, one being the system variable monitor, to help monitor certain system variables that you think are very important for you to kind of draw efficiently. And then we visited some of those variables, which is p-edit except, which doesn't pop up the box if you want to join your lines into a polyline and you're tired of accessing the little box there. And then we did a toggle off and on of a tray notification for the printing that we hated to pop up all the time. We also went through file dir, which is a common one that people often experience when opening new files, and it doesn't open up the dialog box appropriately. Other things that we went through is external references. We set the default reference type path to be either 1 for relative, 0 for no path, or 2 for full path. And we also did a find and replace. So we right-clicked into our XREF and a find and replace in case we want to replace a whole batch of links very quickly. We also went through select similar and the settings of those selects. So right-click, select similar, and we typed in select similar to access the settings for that. We also did a selection cycle. If we hovered over onto a whole bunch of items that we're struggling to select something, if you press on Control W, it's going to allow you to switch on selection cycling and help you cycle through that selection. Some time savers that we went through was we held on Control to reverse the arc. When we were doing a drawing, we used the oops command to revert back to the last erased object, irrespective of how far we are in our project and what we've drawn so far. We did an undo mark in order to kind of remember set a marker in order to undo to that point, basically after drawing a whole bunch of things. We also did a viewport cycle through. When we entered the viewport, we hit Control R to cycle through different viewports. We did a drawing cleanup through using 3 of those options. We also spoke about audit and purge, but we also did a join, overkill, and dim reassociate to help you with those dimension lines or dimension values that have been overridden. And that's about it. And thank you guys for joining the webinar and giving us time. We know that it is the end of the year. People are very busy, and it's great to have you guys. So if there's anything that you want to ask me, any questions that you have, or any topics that you might want to see in the future, please feel free to mail me or even leave a comment in the little box in the webinar as well. So thank you guys a lot. I'll just stay on for a few moments to see if there's any questions that one might need.